Can more administrators be cut instead of teachers? And what do administrative interns do? Dr. Schwanke.
Okay, I'm going to explain the administrative intern role. Many industries, I think most all industries, have a program. They call them interns or assistants or whatever, where they begin to build a bench of future leaders. And that is one of the intents of our administrative intern program. But I want to kind of back up a little and tell you what these people do. Our elementary schools and one of our middle schools and all of our high schools have an intern or a dean of students or an assistant principal. The administrative intern role at the elementary is the one I'm going to focus on, although it does apply to the middle school and to the dean of students. This role was created to be a support to the principal. The job of a principal has changed in many ways in the past, I would say 10 or 15 years. And there's 4 parts to an intern's job or an assistant principal's job. The first is instructional leadership, and that's getting into classrooms, supporting teachers, implementing new curriculum, providing training, professional development, and so on. Another component to that is the evaluation of teachers. The state stepped in probably 5 or 6 years ago with something called OTES, the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System. And our principals are required, according to ODE, to evaluate every teacher at least once, sometimes twice a year. And some of our principals have staffs of 70 plus. And to do an evaluation correctly, to really ensure that your teachers are growing, it takes a lot of time. You do a pre-conference, you go and observe their classroom, you do a post-conference, you develop growth plans, and so on. So that's one. The second one is the management tasks that our principals and our assistant principals and interns take on. Safety, facility, attendance, creation, development of events, special education, 504 plans, student discipline, communicating with parents, community outreach, and so on. The third piece that principals do is testing and MTSS, which used to be called RTI. We do provide a lot of assessments for our students, and that takes time. That takes an administrator to oversee all of that, look at the data, study the data, get that out to teachers to see how they're going to respond to their instruction. And so those components, plus that idea of building a bench of future administrators, is really important to us. We feel that at any given time, if we have a principal opening, we would have probably 10 interns that are trained and ready to step into that role and know what they're doing day one. Now, that doesn't mean that always happens. We had an opening at Thomas last year, and we actually hired someone from the outside. But that was mostly because most of our interns were doing great work where they were and wanted to stay one more year. So cutting them, if the levy is not approved, administrative intern role will be cut. And a lot of people say, well, how am I as a parent going to feel that? You would feel it because all that work's going to go on the principal. So you're not necessarily going to see the visibility from your principal. Response time might change, and that connection that our principals are able to build with students will change. I also thought it might be helpful for our community to know that, many of us, when we went to elementary school, our principal didn't have an assistant. Why do they need them now? Again, the job has changed so much that almost every district around the area, their elementary schools do have assistants or some sort of an intern role. Why do some of our buildings have assistant principals and some have interns? We do that based on a very complex rubric that Mrs. Althouse over there developed. It's awesome. And what it does is it studies how many IEP students we have, how many discipline issues every year, how many 504s, enrollment. Enrollment's a big one too. And so we put that all into a formula to determine who has an assistant and who has an intern. What's the big difference there? An assistant principal works year-round and is an administrator. An intern works on a teacher contract and only works the days that teachers work. They don't work throughout the summer and so on. So that was a lot that I threw at you. Any questions, or are we not doing questions right now?
No, that was the question. What do they do?
I answered. Yeah. I answered the question.
You answered
no more
the
questions.
And when it comes to can we cut more administrators, we recently received a comprehensive staffing audit that went through all of the staffing that we've done in the Dublin City Schools. And it's interesting that in the audit, it said that the sometimes imagined scenario of central office being heavy with senior leaders is just not accurate in the Dublin City Schools. We are not heavily staffed with administrators. And when what we do and how we do it, we've said that if we're not successful on November 7th, we're going to have to change some of the way that we provide services. because we just won't have as many people to provide the services that we're providing.